Everyone's familiar with all the reoccurrences in video games that just plain piss them off. Underwater levels, escort missions, ability removal, you name it. But every once in a while, you find a design choice in one specific video game, or sometimes a few video games, that just makes you wonder what were they thinking. And thus we have this list of 5 mechanics specific to one video game that takes away from the experience. Aside from the 2 standard countdown rules, remember that I'm only looking at mechanics specific to a single game, so none of the usual cliches I mentioned earlier are allowed on. So without any further ado, let's get this thing going. Ah yes, Mega Man, an iconic franchise that seemed to be getting the short end of the stick in recent years, but now seems to be getting better treatment. So what do people play these games for? The fun platforming and shooting gameplay, the satisfying feeling of beating a difficult segment, the point system in the original? Wait, hold up, it's definitely not the latter. Yes, I know that point systems are something that always have been and always will be in video games. I'm specifically referring to the point balls in the original Mega Man. Why it's on here is because unlike the other games in which the stuff dropped from enemies is actually useful, like restoration items or extra lives, the original's point balls serve absolutely no purpose. Seriously, name one person who's ever played the original Mega Man so that they could brag about their high score. Its utter uselessness is also made even more obvious by the fact that it hasn't appeared in any Mega Man game since. Actually, I lied. It does appear in a modified form in Mega Man 9 and 10. It's just, tweaked so that it's actually useful. But I suppose if there's one good thing about this mechanic, it's that I can use it to bring back this joke.
I've got big balls! Oh, I've got big balls!
Hey, it's harder to get old if it doesn't appear that often. And speaking of completely unnecessary mechanics that thankfully got the axe, we have the item stat from Mario Kart DS. The best way I can sum it up in a nutshell is that the item stat is a failed experiment. In a game that had draws such as the Retro Grand Prix and the ability to unlock any kart for any character, the item stat drags down an otherwise great game. How it works should be fairly self-explanatory. The higher the item stat is, the higher chance you have of getting better items. The problem is that it confined you to using weaker carts if you wanted to get good items. Even worse though is when you're in time trials mode. Unless you're using a cart with a maxed out item stat, the number of mushrooms that you get decreases, again bringing me back to what I was saying about it confining you to the crappier carts. Thankfully, it hasn't returned in any future Mario Kart games, and I'm hoping it never does. Yup, I'm putting random tripping from Super Smash Bros. Brawl on the list. Was there ever any doubt? Now, I'll be honest, this mechanic didn't annoy me as much as it seemed to annoy other people, but the random tripping, you're probably gonna start to notice a pattern by now, is completely unneeded. Imagine if this kind of shit happened in other fighting games.
Finish him!
You're going down, son. Oh. Thank God this was removed in Smash 4. Oh hey guys, looks like I get to talk about Team Fortress 2 again. You all know what I'm talking about here. You're on a good team, you're doing quite well, you're getting close to winning, and then...
You shitting me?
Yes, I know that Autobalance is there to make sure that a specific team doesn't get too overpowered, but that still doesn't make getting Autobalanced onto a losing team any less frustrating. Yes, I know that people sometimes get Autobalanced onto winning teams, but if I had $1 for every time that's happened in the 4.5 years that I've played TF2, I wouldn't be able to afford anything that Billy Mays sold. And the worst part is that the problem with Autobalance can be solved with one simple solution. Just wait until the match is over! Autobalance may be a necessary evil in TF2, but far too often the evil part is given too much emphasis. Let me just start this segment off by saying that while the other entries on this list are just plain bad design choices, they don't even come close to ruining the games that they're from. Number 1, on the other hand, is a different story. It's a major contributor as to why the game it's from has the reputation that it does. Just to clarify, we're talking about this game. E.T. may not be as bad as everyone says it is, but it is a very confusing game. The one thing that you'll be doing all the time in this game is going in and out of pits. And that's when you're gonna have to levitate out. The problem with this mechanic is twofold. Doing this, like any other form of movement in E.T., drains your life. Based on how often you're going to be going into pits that have none of the phone pieces that you're looking for in them, it's going to eat away at your life greatly. And that's not even getting into the other reason why it's here. How often you end up falling back in. Due to the way the pits are programmed, unless you're far away from them, you'll end up falling back in as soon as you let go of the button. And it just goes on, and on, and on. If you end up getting stuck, by the time you actually do get out, so much life has been drained that there's no hope left of winning. I don't think that E.T. deserves the massively bad reputation that it has. I mean, I've certainly played worse. But when one of your main mechanics is such a pain to use, that is a sign that you have failed at making a good game. And that, more than anything else, says why this is number 1 on the list. The Spirit of Vengeance, and I'll see y'all later. Thank God this was removed in Smash 4. But you thought I actually tripped?